Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. Today, it is 12th of August, and now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to, and I hope you will find this episode informative and useful, and if so, please, dear friends, don't forget to like the video, and if you can, please leave some commentary after the stream. It will help to deal with the algorithm and reach a wider audience potentially. And as always, after news segment, I will be engaged in a community chat, and if I see any question or the comment directed to me, of course, I will try to be as informative as I can in my response. And so, yes, that's been said there. I will just remind you, dear friends, that my channel is monetized on Rumble, and you can use a super chat feature there to make sure that I'm not going to miss your question or the comment. Okay, that's been said. Let's go through some news and a lot to unpack, by the way. We have some major developments that are happening. But first of all, I will start with this report from RIA Novosti that overnight Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted their 25 drones that was launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky to strike deep into Russian territory, obviously with assistance of its NATO backers. I can give you some specifics on that. 22 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region, and 3 drones over the Stavropol region, southern Russia. Lately, we all noticed that Kiev regime and its NATO backers are focused mainly on the southern regions of the Russian Federation when it comes to these long-range drone strikes, and the Russian air defense systems, as always, are on top of the game and are intercepting vast majority of incoming aerial targets. Also, dear friends, if you remember, yesterday I did share information during the stream that Russian armed forces established control over their Novaya Shakhovo settlement on the northern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. And during the day yesterday, more and more news was coming in about a major breakthrough that Russian armed forces achieved in this direction. And today I can give you some more details on that. And let's take a look at the map, dear friends. This is the area that we are talking about. So this is Pokrovsk and the Mirnograd agglomeration, and Russian armed forces achieved a truly major breakthrough. At this point, I can give you names of the settlements that are either under full Russian control or partial Russian control. So there is a Zatishek settlement, Sukhetskoye settlement, Chervony Liman. Also, by the way, Fyodorovka was liberated earlier. Russian troops are in Nikanorovka settlement. Also, on the northern side, Russian troops are in Kucharov Yar settlement. I mean, massive breakthrough, by the way. Massive breakthrough. And if we take a look at the Pokrovsk, Mirnograd cities themselves, well, they are almost completely encircled, isn't it? There is only one major supply and support line left for Kiev regime's forces in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd. And already this road is under Russian drone control, E50 road, basically. And this breakthrough is in such a scale, that maybe we will see complete withdrawal of Kiev regime's forces from Pokrovsk and Mirgorod and surrounding areas in next several days, potentially even before Trump-Putin meeting will take place in Alaska this Friday. Or, by the way, it might well happen that Russian troops will continue during the day today and nighttime their offensive operations. We might see Russian breakthrough now from southern-western flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd, and in that case, it is well possible that Pokrovsk-Mirnograd will end up in complete encirclement. Right now, it is obvious that this major stronghold of Kyiv regime forces and NATO mercenaries in DPR is in operational encirclement. So very significant developments are happening in this direction, which obviously makes Russian position ever more stronger during that upcoming talks that should take place between Putin and Trump in Alaska in a few days' time. Also, dear friends, Russian armed forces, in addition to what I already said there, we have TASS News Agency's report, which is based on Defense Ministry, that Russian armed forces established control over their Lunacharsk settlement and this is big, by the way. This is bigger. You can see on your screen right now map of breakthrough that happened yesterday, and all the media outlets, of course, were reporting about it, especially in alternative media. Not the Western MSM, there, not the Western MSM, because for them it's a stalemate, of course. But in reality, Russian armed forces improving their positions literally on a daily basis, and quite often we have some major developments that are happening on the line of contact, as it is right now as we speak, and the Russian troops are very close to completely encircled Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. And I already mentioned, your friends, upcoming meeting between, planned at least, meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, that's supposed to take place on Friday, on this Friday in Alaska, in Anchorage, I believe. Well, even though I shared my take on all these developments in previous updates, I'm still receiving questions on the matter, what I think might happen or will happen. And well, this morning, right before I start this stream, by the way, I did write several notes about this situation. This is not a deep analytics, by the way. It's just a rapid share of opinion, let me say. But nevertheless, let's go through some details, by the way, of my reading of the big picture. So why did Putin agree to talk with Trump? What are Moscow's objectives and what should we expect? That's one of the main questions right now, and I can give you some points on that. So it should be understood that Russia currently has their strongest positions from the military standpoint. The initiative on the battlefield is entirely in Russian hands, and Moscow is entering these negotiations. If it will take place, if globalists would not be able to derail this summit, Moscow is entering these negotiations with their position of strength. This is very important, right? At the same time, we should keep in mind that Moscow, in my personal opinion, understands well that the acceleration of militarization of the collective West, especially European countries, which is their objective reality, over time might decrease or significantly even minimize Russia's advantages in terms of productivity or productive capabilities of the military industrial complex, which is very important, obviously, when you are engaged in a high intensity confrontation, military conflict, right? This is especially important against the background of the fact that the BRICS countries, the global south, one might say, or the supporters of the multipolar world, do not express their readiness to become involved in the conflict on the Russian side openly, right? Directly, by sending their military personnel and or the military equipment. Or indirectly, for that matter, they can do this indirectly too, right? But there was no indicators that countries that are in support of idea of multipolarity, countries of the BRICS and others were ready to actually support Russia with all means necessary to withstand and actually win this battle against the united force of evil that Western ruling class is, right? So this is very important to keep in mind, because due to this development, obviously Moscow, in front of the unpleasant reality that with the long-term continuation of the confrontation with the globalists or the ruling class of the West, might lose this advantage when it comes to military industrial complex. Russia might, and also we should keep in mind that Russia might or will find itself in an extremely disadvantageous position due to unbearable pressure on the economy and the society, even under the conditions of an almost limitless mobilization potential of manpower and their fighting spirit, high fighting spirit among the Russian citizens themselves, right? But nevertheless, no matter how high your fighting spirit is, you need a strong economy, right, to support military operations. You need military equipment to continue this fight. You're not gonna go against the Leopard 2 tanks with the shovels, right? Actually, so we should keep in mind that Moscow is making its judgments based on this reality that it's facing united force of evil, that Western ruling class is alone, basically. And neither country from the BRICS or among supporters of this idea of globalism, multipolarity, express readiness to actually get involved in this fight on the Russian side, on the right side of history. All we hear from all those, or from leadership of those countries, is that they are neutral. They are neutral, and they all are for peace, right? And this is something that we should keep in mind, right? So based on this reality, Moscow has, in my opinion, decided to enter into dialogue with Washington in order to, on the one hand, increase friction between the US and Europe, which are far from ideal relations between each other for many reasons, and also in order to explore the possibility of a full or partial withdrawal of the US from the anti-Russian coalition and subsequently from this proxy war against Russia that globalists are leading. This is also important, obviously, because without US, obviously, capabilities of globalist control Europe or globalist control regimes in Europe is much less, right? Another pointer, there is every reason also to believe that Europe, controlled by the globalists without United States, as I just said, will not be able to achieve its goals of strategical defeat and subsequent disintegration of Russia, provided that war continues for many more years. That's how important US's involvement in this proxy war is for the globalists, and that's why many experts express their opinions that globalist control regimes might take some steps, provocative steps, to derail these talks to happen. And well, today is 12, isn't it? And a meeting between Trump and Putin should take place on 15th. So unfortunately, those globalists still have some time to try and derail these talks. However, it is also highly likely that without full participation of the United States in anti-Russian coalition and the proxy war, Europe will prefer to de-escalate. And this is also true, I believe, because if globalists would not be able, for whatever reasons, let's say if Washington would, have some conversations with their European regimes, and if Washington will demand to not to even try to derail these talks, in that case, it is a possibility that globalists will not really have much choices to agree on a de-escalation, at least for the time being, right? Also, obviously, there is a question: what potential concessions or compromises will Moscow have to make to pull the US out of the anti-Russian coalition and this proxy war led by globalists? And I can give you a few points on that too. So Washington most likely will demand a slowdown in Russian participation in their integration processes among the BRICS member states, among the BRICS. the global south in general, including the direction of creation of alternative financial and banking system, alternative to their Western one, which is tremendously weaponized. We all know that. For this purpose, Russian financial and the banking sector may be relieved of some sanctions that U.S. has imposed, including to use U.S. Currency, right, U.S. dollar. Also, Washington potentially will demand priority rights to investor in the Russian energy sector and influence their energy flows. Obviously, if you are a big investor, you have a say where to sell this energy, which direction, and so on. And by doing so, Washington basically will become a kind of main intermediary and potential for additional and will gain additional tools for potential pressure on Europe, China, and others, right? Which is also something that Washington probably would like to have in its inventory when it comes to influence over their global processes. Another point, the United States most likely will demand and receive the opportunity to participate significantly in the Russian Northern Sea Route project, which will potentially become the main trade route for 21st century. And by doing so, obviously, Washington will have an opportunity potentially to yet again influence the global South, influence global, not just global South, but also China, because this Northern Sea Route, by the way, is destined to become a major trade route, and China might at some point experience difficulties when it comes to access to this route, which is going to be potentially another point of influence on Beijing in hands of Washington. Thus, if a dialogue between Washington and Moscow is successful, which is not the fact that will be successful, but if this preliminary, let's say, meeting between two presidents will lead to further cooperation, in that case, Russia may actually become unofficial, at least unofficial partner or even ally of the United States in the geopolitical arena, on geopolitical theater, with all the consequences this entails for the idea of multipolarity, for BRICS, Global South, and so on. And dear friends, share your take, what you think gonna happen as a result of these talks. But I think it is most important to keep in mind that all of this could have been avoided if, as I said in the beginning, BRICS member states didn't mess around too much, right? Did not play this game of, we are neutral, and we don't want escalation. All we want is peace. I mean, this is all fake games, right? That BRICS member states were playing around, right? So if they did not act this irresponsibly, in my personal opinion, all these that I already mentioned and many other potential developments that might come out of improved relationships between Moscow and Russia could be avoided by either Global South or BRICS or supporters of the BRICS member states if they did not left Russia alone with the entire collective West, right? If they did not left Russia alone against this united evil force that Western ruling class is. But I think even if they are realizing how devastating error they made in their judgment, I mean, leadership of BRICS or Global South or the supporters of the multipolar world, I think it is now just too late to change anything, right? 3.5 years has passed since the beginning of special military operations, since this proxy war basically was provoked by Western ruling class against Russia and the leadership of countries that formally and publicly were supporting this multipolarity had enough time to made up their minds and to make decision, right, of in favor of supporting Russia directly or indirectly, but in a big way, right, militarily. But they didn't. They did not, and therefore, even if there is certain talks right now between Beijing and Moscow behind the closed doors, between Moscow and New Delhi, between Moscow and other countries, by the way, I don't think Moscow is in a position to risk it all and to believe either Beijing or New Delhi or any other capital that well, they're going to change their attitude and they're going to support Russia big time now. No, man, no. Train has already left their station, one might argue, right? So therefore, that's what might happen, by the way. That's what might happen, and that's why I said a couple of days ago that BRICS and the idea of multipolarity is quite effectively dead at this point. Yet again, you might disagree with me, but that's my understanding of the situation, right? Yet again, share your opinion, what you think is going to happen. But well, I think world community outside of the collective West definitely had the opportunity to fight, to stand and fight against this united evil force that Western ruling class is, and they did not. They left Russia alone to face this monster. And well, due to this objective reality, Moscow don't really has much option but to focus on its own interests in the long run, in the short and a long run, and that's what Moscow gonna do. And that's why I think Russian president, while analyzing whole situation, made the decision to try and normalize relationships with the US, because it's going to be tremendously beneficial for US too, not just for Russia, by the way, for its security and their further development, economical, financial, and so on. But it's going to be, this cooperation going to be tremendously favorable for US too, right? US leading class. So let's see what will come out of all this stuff. But that's what my take is on that, right? And nevertheless, to continue, dear friends, yesterday Trump had yet another press conference. He was initially was talking about situation in DC, Washington DC, and in the rest of the country. He is very upset that situation with criminality and that kind of stuff is very bad. I don't know for sure how bad situation in Washington itself is, but Trump was not shying away to use some very strong words. If among our community are people from Washington, please share what is going on in U.S. Capitol. But that's a whole different topic for discussion. During this press conference, obviously, Trump was asked about upcoming meeting with Putin, about Ukrainian crisis, Zelensky, and so on. So let's go topic by topic. And Trump was, while answering the question, Trump expressed his disappointment, kind of, with Zelensky. He said that he's bothered by Zelensky's whistling, right? Let me give you. He said that, he's got approval to go into a war and kill everybody, but he needs approval now for a land swap. As you know, dear friends, Zelensky, and I report about it, Zelensky trashed basically Trump's, openly, publicly trashed Trump's initiative about land swaps between Russian side and Kiev regime to achieve potentially sustainable peace. And I'm going to give you a short video of these statements of Trump. Let's
by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean. In real estate, we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. If you're in a lake, a river, or an ocean, it's always the best property. Well,
I'm not sure Trump actually knows what he's talking about when it comes to this description of his about areas that might be swapped between their sides. Probably he was briefed on the matter, and I guess there will be some talks that Russia will transfer or Russia will withdraw troops from, let's say, Sumy region and the Kharkov region in exchange of territories in DPR, for example, that are still controlled by Kiev regime's forces. Maybe even Kherson and Zaporozhye regions, although earlier there was reports in the media, Western media primarily, that according to Trump's or Washington's initiatives, Kherson and Zaporozhye cities themselves or right bank of the Dnieper River stays under control of Kiev regime and subsequently Western ruling class. This is going to be a very difficult topic to discuss with the Russian side, but nevertheless, let's see what is going to happen. But Trump was quite clear, isn't it, that he is not happy with Zelensky, and this might play some role, by the way. It seems like Trump genuinely dislikes Zelensky, right, and all that regime there, and for many reasons, by the way, right. On top of that, dear friends, Trump also went to say this.
Part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings.
He was asked about Zelensky's participation, basically, in this summit that might take place in Alaska, and that's his answer.
For 3.5. He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. He's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened.
And what is the definition?
I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is. Because there could be many definitions. You're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now, I tell you, the war that I just settled with Azerbaijan and with, as you know, and Armenia was almost as complex as this one, having to do with routes, trade.
Meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Well, we will see. We will see. But you have a opinion of Trump there, and to continue, dear friends, to continue. I'm gonna move this on here, and next topic that I want to discuss or to share the video of Trump's statements is that he said that this meeting, as I already mentioned, by the way, in a couple of minutes ago, he said that this meeting is kind of preliminary meeting. They're gonna test the ground, how far they can go in terms of not just the escalation of Ukrainian crisis. And you know what? I think it's this meeting is going to be not so much about Ukrainian crisis as about potential successes that two sides might have as a result of cooperation in other fields, right? Although, of course, Ukrainian crisis will be discussed. And on this matter, let me give you another video of Trump. For example, this one.
Ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him, considering the fact that, I was not nice to him because of
It's not next week, it's this week, but nevertheless.
the pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin? Javelin.
And as you know, dear friends, Trump cannot live a day without bragging about anything. And even though he's going to meet Russian president, he's still bragging about how bad he was to Russia, how extreme he was in regards to Russia. He loves to talk about these javelin missiles, but
is called a tank buster. They say that Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the first days of the war, because the tanks got stuck in the mud, some commander made a better. They would have been in Kiev in 4 hours, going down the highway. But a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer, because all those tanks were stuck in the mud, and they went along with the javelins.
Yet again, he has no idea what he's talking about, but nevertheless, he had to brag, by the way. That's what he is. That's his personality. He had to brag about some stuff. But nevertheless, then he went to say this stuff.
Meeting a little bit.
It's a fill-out meeting, kind of to test the ground. That's what I said a minute ago.
Invited me to get involved. He wants to get involved. I believe he wants to get it over with. Now, I've said that a few times, and I've been disappointed because I'd have like a great call with him, and then missiles would be lobbed into Kiev or some other place, and you'd have 60 people laying on a road dying. I said, that's cold, but it's a violent war. 5,000 to 7,000 people a week are dying. And there's nobody from here. They're all Russian and Ukrainian people, and some people from the cities, much smaller number, but still, those missiles do damage and they kill a lot of people, but mostly soldiers. And they're young soldiers, although in the case of Ukraine, they're getting much older. They're drafting 60-year-olds now.
Also, by the way, he went to say that he expressed gratitude that this meeting gonna take place. Let's listen to this video.
Respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third-party place. But I think we'll have constructive conversations. Then after that meeting, immediately, maybe as I'm flying out, maybe as I'm leaving the room, I'll be calling the European leaders who I get along with very well. And, I have a great relationship, I think, with all of them. And I get along with Zelensky, but, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need, but I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders.
So you see, on one hand, Trump is saying that this is a kind of preliminary meeting to test the ground, but on the other hand, clearly Washington is hoping for certain achievements or certain agreements during this meeting, and that's why I guess Trump is saying that. That's why Trump is saying that next meeting might take place with participation of Zelensky. So clearly, both sides, by the way, I think Washington and Moscow during behind the closed door negotiations to reach certain agreements and to basically organize this meeting between the two presidents. Clearly, they have reached some agreements that will be announced during this meeting between Trump and Putin. Although, as I already said, I think this meeting is not going to be solely about Ukrainian crisis. Ukrainian crisis will be discussed, but main topic of discussion between the two presidents and their potential delegations that they will have with them will be all the benefits that sides might have if they will manage to improve relationships, right? And a couple of minutes ago, I did share with you my take on at least several directions that progress might be made, might be reached between the two countries. So let's continue, dear friends, with some other news now. And well, what I want to give you is that RIA Novosti basically went to share with the public here in Russia some key points of Trump's statements from this yesterday's press conference. And let's go through these key points too. And this way you will have a good understanding on what particular points, for example, Russian media was focused on, what particular points Russian media pay attention to. So US President Donald Trump spoke about her upcoming meeting with Vladimir Putin, at which he plans to ask him to end the conflict in Ukraine, and also expressed his attitude to the latest statements by Vladimir Zelensky. Main points. The meeting with the Russian president will be preliminary. Trump is confident that he will understand whether an agreement on Ukraine is possible within a couple of minutes of the start of the negotiation. Okay. He cannot live, I guess, not just day, but even hour without bragging about something and how tough he is and how brilliant mind he is and that kind of stuff. So this topic comes from that area, right? Nevertheless, to continue, the American leader is unhappy with Zelensky's statements that he will need constitutional approval on the territorial issues. Polls, according to Trump, shows that 88% of Ukrainians want a peace deal with Russia. Well, maybe he has some latest information on that. I mean, Trump, because like I reported a couple of days ago about polls from Gallup, isn't it? And in that poll, number was 69%, not 88%. Maybe there was some another poll, literally there yesterday or day before yesterday, that Trump is aware of. I don't know. Nevertheless, after the talks, Trump will call Zelensky and European leaders. As you hear from those videos, US president intends to organize a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, while he himself intends to attend. If necessary, Trump says he will try to return some of the territory to Ukraine. Europeans are tired of the conflict in Ukraine, according to Trump. And well, Europeans, if he means society in Europe, this potentially might be partially true, right? But when it comes to elites in Europe, or the globalists and globalist control regimes, even if they are tired, by the way, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until they are forced to stop, because they were very clear, by the way. They were very clear that their main goal is to achieve a strategical defeat of Russia and their subsequent full-scale disintegration of this country, so that they will have opportunity to grab not just land, but most importantly, resources that Russia is rich with, right? So that's key points from Trump that Russian media paid attention to, and also some ironic, funny moment that happened during that press conference, dear friends. Let me give you another very short clip in which Trump made a mechanical error, let's say, when he said following.
For me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday.
You spot, dear friends, what he said? Let's start it again.
And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was.
Yes, sir. He's going to Russia. That's quite a stuff, isn't it? Alaska used to be Russia, for sure. Alaska used to be Russia, but no longer this is the case since basically 1867, right? Since 1867, when Russia sold this territory to United States. But who knows, man? Who knows what future holds for neither countries, right? Maybe sometime in the future, Alaska gonna come back to Russia. I'm being ironic here, obviously. But it is interesting. And also, dear friends, as I said in the beginning, what is going on in Washington? Why Trump is using these strong words in regards to U.S. capital? His situation is that bad there. If you are from Washington, please share your opinion. It would be interesting to know what is going on there in that capital. Nevertheless, let's continue with some more news. Well, Chief of Pentagon, Pat Hexed, did not rule out possibility of U.S. attacks on Mexican cartels. Recently, there was information, by the way, that U.S. militaries might actually get involved in operations against cartels, and many people online, especially, took this information as a sort of declaration of the war by U.S. on these cartels and potential deployment of U.S. troops. And now Pentagon's chief is not excluding attacks on the cartels, which is serious stuff. I will say. Washington will have some hard time with not just Mexico, not just with government of Mexico, but with government of other countries in South America, in Latin America, that where cartels are traditionally operating. Right, so we should keep in mind that development also. But to come back to current crisis between the collective West and Russia, we have this report from Vzglyad newspaper that Kaja Kallas calls top diplomat of EU. It is funny to say about Kaja Kallas that she is a top diplomat of EU, but that's her position. That's what her position is about, right? So Kaja Kallas calls emergency meeting of EU foreign ministers over the Russia-US summit. Well, they're going to come up with all sorts of demands, obviously, before Washington. Also, we have Bloomberg's report that there will be a phone call, allegedly, there will be a phone conversation between Zelensky and a number of European leaders tomorrow on 13th of August, 2 days before this meeting will take place. So I guess first foreign ministers of EU member states will come up with some notes or demands, and then during this phone conversation that will take place between Trump and Zelensky and European leaders, they will share these demands with Trump. I don't think he will listen much of it, right, or will take it in account. But nevertheless, we will see. Also, Interfax is reporting that no matter what, by the way, no matter what is going to happen on Friday between Trump and Putin, what kind of agreements might be reached or might not be reached, European leadership or globalist control regimes in Europe are stating that they are ready and willing to continue military and financial assistance of Kiev regime, Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. Although, by the way, probably they already are feeling some heat. Probably they already are feeling some heat from Washington, and they are beginning to compromise on some positions. And that's why we have this headline here that Europe will support Ukraine's cession of territories already controlled by Russia. Yesterday or day before, I shared with you a short video of statements of Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, when he was talking about that, West will have to acknowledge de facto control of Russian Federation on certain areas, certain territories that used to be part of former Soviet Republic Ukraine. Although he said that the West will refuse to acknowledge Russian jurisdiction over this territory, just a de facto control. That would be topic that Moscow will have a hard time to agree, obviously, especially in regards to new regions, by the way. According to Russian constitution, these regions are Russia, Crimea, obviously, and Kherson, Zaporozhye, DPR, and LPR, and have to be liberated completely, right? But nevertheless, despite strong statements from European leaders that we are hearing day in, day out, they are feeling some pressure. And therefore they are beginning to change their stance little by little. And this is something that we did not really hear before, that Europe will support Ukraine's cession of territories that are already controlled by Russia. And they will be probably, by the way, Trump spoke about this topic of exchange of territories so many times that probably certain agreements already were reached behind their closed doors by the negotiating groups of Russia and the US. So I guess it is highly likely at this point, by the way, based on the information that what we have from open sources, that there may be agreement will be that Russia will withdraw forces from Sumy region, Kharkov region, and in exchange, Kyiv regime will withdraw forces at least from LPR, DPR completely. In LPR, no settlement is controlled by Kyiv regime. There are some Kyiv regime's forces in some forestry area and that kind of stuff, but they not control no settlement there. But in DPR, obviously, Kyiv regime still controls quite a number of cities and villages, obviously, and they will withdraw from there if agreements are reached on that, right? I don't know what is going to happen in regards to Zaporozhye and Kherson region. I expect Russian leader to demand the withdrawal of Kyiv regime's forces from Zaporozhye region and Kherson region. Also, although we have to wait and see, maybe Kyiv regime will withdraw forces from Zaporozhye region until the Dnieper River, maybe. But in that case, and if a line of contact will be frozen on the Dnieper River in that area, in that sector, Kherson, Zaporozhye, then in that case, Kherson city and Zaporozhye city will end up staying in a Kyiv-controlled territory, which is a problem, obviously, and if sides will agree on that today, that will mean that eventually, sometime in the future, this conflict will resume, because yet again, Russia has to liberate all of its territories. So it will be truly freezing of the conflict, but definitely not a sustainable peace. It just will be break of sort. To continue, dear friends, we have this report. I just said that, well, European leaders, even though feeling some heat and acknowledging that, well, they have to compromise on certain positions, they are still very tough when it comes to statements that they're going to support Kyiv regime in financial terms, in military terms, and so on and so on. And we have this report that EU Commission sends another 1.6 billion euros from frozen Russian assets to Zelensky and his criminal associates. They are stealing Russian money, by the way, basically, right? And on top of that, Azerbaijan, by the way, Azerbaijan is planning to send $2 million aid and some electrical gear. Okay. Aliyev, it seems like Aliyev is completely lost, by the way, president of Azerbaijan, and he's looking for any possibilities to demonstrate that Baku is escalating with Moscow, and that's what this information is about. If you are interested in my opinion, I think until there is Aliyev's regime in Azerbaijan, the relationships between Moscow and Baku never gonna become never gonna reach even a good working level, by the way. And it was almost on a strategical level at one point, right? It was on a really good level, but Baku, under the orders of London and Ankara, decided to escalate with Moscow, and they're going to face the consequences now. That's how it is. But nevertheless, let's continue with some more news. And on the topic of Southern Caucasus, I just mentioned Azerbaijan that is escalating with Russia under their orders from the collective West. And we have this report that Yerevan and Baku, capitals of Armenia and Azerbaijan, republics from Southern Caucasus region, simultaneously published the text of the peace agreement between their sides. I can give you. I'm not gonna even try to give you details on that. It's 17 points in this agreement. It contains 17 articles. Thus, the agreement states that the two countries are expressing their just a short, brief take on this agreement. So it has it does express this mutual will of two countries to establish a good neighboring relations, agree to establish a peace and in intense state relations, recognizing the urgent need to establish a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in the region, striving to promote their achievements of this goal through their establishment of interstate relations guided by the UN Charter, their declaration of the principles of international law concerning friendly relations and cooperation among states in accordance with the UN Charter 1970, the final act of their Helsinki Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe 1975, their Alma Ata Declaration of December 21st, 1991, and striving to develop relations on their basis of the norms and the principles enshrined in these documents. Formally, two sides are moving towards establishing true peace between them, but this is not going to happen, by the way. This is not going to happen because Armenia is in no position right now to actually protect itself and its interests due to this traitor regime that they have under the leadership of Pashinyan, total scum of humanity, right? And same time, by the way, I don't think countries from the collective West, especially that have interests in the region, gonna allow these two countries to actually reach their peace. France has issues with Azerbaijan, and they will use their influence or leverage over Armenia to keep tensions in the region. U.S., despite the recent visit of this Aliyev and Pashinyan to Washington and all these statements of Trump or others, Washington also has certain interests there, which is not related with their peace. Absolutely, by the way, it's exactly the opposite, right? And we should also keep in mind, by the way, that there is a under surface conflict between French elites and the British elites, right? In many directions, including in Southern Caucasus region. Azerbaijan now is a proxy of UK, Turkey, and partially Israel. And France is not happy with that, right? France wants to change this status quo, and by doing so, to bring to improve relationships with Iran. And both countries, by the way, Azerbaijan and Iran, is of course are bigger, rich, very rich, let's say, with energy resources, and that's one of the reasons why, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why there is tensions and on the surface fight between France and the UK. Obviously, I said many times before that Europe, in the long run, like give it 20, 30 years, and Europe will become either loosely relevant or completely irrelevant part of Eurasian continent, and there are only few countries might maintain certain level or certain positions on the geopolitical scale, and even then, if either they will have good relationships with Russia, or if they will somehow manage to have access to energy, right, to resources, to sustain their economies, right? And this is a big deal. France obviously don't want to, French elites don't want France to become a irrelevant country on a geopolitical scale. So they're going to continue this struggle, this fight, first of all against the British elites, so British aristocracy, and by doing so, obviously with the British proxies too, that is Turkey, and France has a terrible relationships with Turkey, and also with Azerbaijan for that matter, and France has terrible relationships with Azerbaijan too. So it's a very complex issue, by the way. There's many there is an interest that are crossing there in that region of many countries and many forces. So if you ask me, am I positive that or optimistic that they're going to be sustainable peace in the Southern Caucasus region, especially in regards to Azerbaijan and Armenia? Well, I will say no. There will be no peace there, by the way. Not now, right? It is unfortunate, but that's their objective reality as I see it, right? Also, dear friends, a few more news, and that's about it for a news segment, and I will join community chat. So yesterday, Donald Trump posted on his True Social that he's suspending he's extending basically tariff suspensions on China for another 90 days, and talks between Washington and Beijing will continue, and their attempts to reach some agreement when it comes to trade relationships. And this information is going to be especially negatively seen in India, by the way, right? India was just tariffed additional 25% for cooperating with Russia, for buying some stuff from Russia, energy and so on. And at the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump is extending suspension of high tariffs on China for another 90 days. And China is also buying goods from Russia, right? So yes, I guess Indian leadership will be very much upset due to this development. But yet again, it's only a matter of time, by the way, only a matter of time. And U.S. Will be, I guess, in a position to further escalate with China too, including in terms of economical relationships, especially if upcoming summit and follow-up summits, potential follow-up summits between Washington and Moscow will be successful. Because with Russia, Washington is in a very different position than without. And we all understand that, isn't it? So let's see how will situation develop. But yes, this information is going to be very upsetting for India, for Brazil, by the way, from many other countries in this world that have been tariffed high, on a high level by US, while China has a kind of a free pass for another 90 days. And dear friends, I will end this news segment on this news that Russia and Brazil to strengthen financial partnership This came after US threatened to impose secondary sanctions on Russia's key partners, experts from both sides, to outline further steps. And well, by the way, on one hand, of course, I would like to see emergence of a multipolar world, further strengthening of the BRICS relationships between BRICS member states. But on the other hand, we have to be realists, isn't it? Our judgment have to be based on realism, and therefore, I personally, I don't know what kind of judgment you're gonna have, but I personally think time has passed. By the way, time was lost for true increase in the cooperation. Right, BRICS member states had a greater volume of time, many years, to actually do something, right? To build the foundation for a multipolar world, proper foundation. But unfortunately, because BRICS member states and countries that are dreaming about this multipolar world, because those countries or the political leadership of those countries, right, left Russia alone against this united evil force that Western ruling class is. Now Moscow is in a situation, and I explained why, when Moscow actually going to try, by the way, to reach some agreement with Washington, if possible, in attempt to pull out US, at least partially, from this proxy war, right? That West is waging against Russia. And this will, if successful, by the way, obviously, in that case, Moscow will have to compromise on some certain directions. This is existential struggle for Russia. This is existential struggle for Russia, and it is unfortunate that BRICS member states didn't see it that way, and they wasted the time, right? Instead of supporting Russia big time, instead of supporting Russia militarily, directly or indirectly, by the way, there is always means, right? You might don't send your, let's say, 1,000 infantry fighting vehicles directly, but you can send it indirectly through third parties, right? There is always opportunity. If you want to support, you can support, right? You will find ways, right? You might don't want to send your militaries directly, but there is always way to send it indirectly. That's what NATO does, by the way, right? We call them NATO mercenaries. In reality, we know that the vast majority of these NATO mercenaries are actually NATO troops designated as mercenaries, right? They are signing up. They are relieved from armies for the time being. They are signing up for private military companies and then send like that. But it's a NATO stuff still, right? So there is a ways. NATO or collective West is supporting their proxy regime, not just with money or the weapons, but also with the manpower. And well, BRICS member states, countries that were seeking emergence of multipolar world, they did not do this, with the exception of North Korea, by the way. None of the countries send their weapons and the manpower. Iran transferred their technology, shared basically technology of this Iran drone, right? And that Russia is producing, I believe, under the license, those drones. I guess, right? Information, very little information is actually known, right, publicly about this cooperation between the sides. But nevertheless, it was still significant support, right, from Iran, I will say, and North Korea, and that's about it, right? So BRICS member states, leading countries, among supporters of the multipolarity, wasted the time and I think opportunity, chances that they would together with Russia actually build a multipolar world. Now it's too late, man. It's too late. Moscow will obviously seek further improvements of the relationships with the BRICS member states and other countries. But yet again, if Russian side is successful in this attempt to pull out US from this proxy war, either completely or partially, even in that case, this will be a huge relief, by the way. right, for Russian side, because obviously there is a big difference if there is just a globalist controlled Europe against us, or US is engaged also against us. I mean, US is a superpower, right? Major economical and military superpower. So it is very important if US is either engaged against you or not, right? So if Russia is successful in this attempt to pull out US, then in that case, obviously, some Washington will demand some compromises, right, to have some agreements in place, and I think that will be death sentence for BRICS and the multipolar idea of multipolarity, multipolar world. But yet again, this is not due to Russia, but due to leadership of BRICS member states and other countries outside of the collective West that left Russia alone against this evil force that Western ruling class is. That's how it is, man. And I mean, if you agree with me, please share your opinion. If you disagree with me, also please share your opinion on that. And that's it for news segment, dear friends. Today, let me now check if there was any super chat. There was a super chat, by the way. There was a super chat on Rumble, and let me share with you this super chat first, and then I will join the community chat. I hope you find interesting news segment, dear friends, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary, not just in the chat, but also in the comment section after this stream will end. This might actually help to reach wider audience. And dear friends, in case you want to support my work, and this independent media project of mine, please, you can do it through several means. You can send their donation through PayPal platform or Boosty platform, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page or page that I have on Boosty. You can use crypto, and during the live streams, you can. And I'm streaming on both platforms, by the way, simultaneously on YouTube and Rumble on my channel. So during the streams, you can use super chat feature on Rumble to donate, and you can become premium subscriber there on Rumble. All the links, all the addresses under this video in the description box, and will be in a pinned comment on YouTube once stream will end. And this is the super chat, by the way, that I receive. Voivoda is commenting, hello from Havana. Bratushi, you can park a nuclear submarine anytime in our bay, and also drop an Oreshnik on the Yankee in Guantanamo Bay. Voivoda, thank you very much for your comment, for your $10 donation. I appreciate it. And yes, I don't think Russia gonna drop Oreshnik on Guantanamo Bay, but you never know. You just never know, isn't it? Clearly, now Russia is seems to be that Russia is trying or gonna try to pull out US from this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, and if successful, we might actually see significant improvement in relationships between Moscow and Washington. Let's see. I mean, yet again, globalists might try to derail these talks in Anchorage in Alaska. I believe it's going to be in Anchorage, by the way. Not really sure about it, but probably there, right? And globalists might use next several days, by the way, to derail these talks. Hopefully, they are not successful, right? Because nothing good will come out from that for anybody, obviously. And hopefully, this meeting between the sides, between Putin and Trump, will be success story. Let's see. Chances are maybe little, but nevertheless, if there is some chances on that, let's try. You know. Now, let's dear friends, if you want a question to ask question, or if you want a certain comment to be highlighted, please use capital letters, at least few capital letters or the capital Q, and I will spot it little easier. Gracie Knoll is commenting. Levan, you say they're globalists. Could you name some names of these people? Well, globalists, yes, I think leading force behind the globalists are aristocracy, European aristocracies, by the way, descendants of, I mean, generational clans, basically, right? Generational clans that were controlling this most of this world for the last 300 to 500 years. Right? And among these European aristocracies, most powerful groups are obviously royal families, European royal families. And among these European royal families, most powerful is British royal family. So am I specific enough? I think so, right? That's who is behind the globalism, by the way. They lost their physical control over their territories, right? British Empire, for example, lost physical control of the territories, but they maintained their indirect control through financial means, right? Through financial system, through banking system, through insurance system, through many other systems that were put in place, right? Nothing to be said about their assets that they have in former colonies. So that's the main decision-making force behind the globalists. And when it comes to European regimes, by the way, either in UK or France or Germany, these are just the puppets. These are their puppets. That's all, right? I'm not buying into this nonsense that, British royal family is not involved in politics really, and they are just a decoration of sort. No, man, don't believe in that. They want us to think that way, right? So don't buy into that false narrative that, British royal family is irrelevant now and just a decoration. No, unfortunately, for all of humanity, these generational criminal groups that are called European royalties, European royal families, and the aristocracy in general, unfortunately, they still are very much in charge. And they are using globalism as their tool to control, by the way. It's a tool of control, this idea of globalization, right? Globalization, excuse me, their way, that will benefit them, not the world itself, right? So hopefully I was specific enough in my answer. And there are obviously financial groups, multinational corporations, and so on that are linked to this European elites, aristocracies, and so on. That's the decision makers, actually. And they are in control of all sorts of different groups, by the way. I mean, some of them are known, like Bilderbergers, for example. Some of them are not known, but nevertheless, they have a lot of tools. These globalists have a lot of tools in their disposal to push whatever agendas they are prioritizing at any given point. Let me continue, dear friends. And you know what? I have an idea to publish question time. I mean, when I'm getting engaged with their community chat, maybe I will publish separately whole this episode, by the way, question and answer, and this dialogue, right, between us, because I think it is interesting. We quite often talk about some stuff that was not in a news segment itself that day, right? But nevertheless, topics are interesting. You are sharing interesting opinions. I'm trying to share, to informative answer to that. So what is your take on that, dear friends? I am for quite a while thinking about this to publish after the streams, not just some short clips from the news segment, but maybe this question time or Q&A part itself also. I don't know. Will it be interesting for a community? Also, dear friends, I see a question from Ramplans. My apologies if I'm butchering your nickname. That won't be a good move from Russia. Why should they give any access to US so they have any kind of influencer in the area? Well, I did not say that this is a preferable deal for Russia, or that's what Russia was dreaming about. Of course not, but Russian leadership have to base its policies, by the way, on objective reality. If Russia had received their actual military assistance, actual help, by the way, from BRICS member states or the other countries that are in support of multipolarity, Moscow would be in a very different situation, right? But because Russia is alone, by the way, it's a 3.5+ years already that the West is waging this proxy war against Russia, and leadership of BRICS member states or other countries had enough time to make up their minds to realize that this is existential struggle between this united evil force that Western ruling class is, or the globalists are, and the rest of their world or their humanity. And they did not, unfortunately, they did not decide to support Russia with all means necessary. And because Russia is alone, by the way, I mean, that's of course, that has its influence on Russian politics. And because Russia is facing this enemy alone, then obviously it will make sense, I mean, from pragmatical standpoint, to try to create some tensions or accelerate some tensions inside their enemy camp, right? And even better if Russia will manage to somehow persuade Washington to pull out either fully or completely from this proxy war against Russia. It will make sense, right? And obviously, in that case, Washington might have some demands. They might, ask for exclusive opportunities to be involved in Russian energy field, in rare earth materials, in other sectors, and also into North Sea trade route, for example, some other directions, right? And because Russia is alone fighting this evil force that Western ruling class is, well, Moscow don't really had, if my understanding on the situation is correct, Moscow is not really has much choice, really. Key goal here is to pull out US from this proxy war. We can deal with Europe separately. Russia did it quite a number of times before, by the way, and Russia can do it again if necessary. But hopefully, if US will pull out from this conflict, European elites or the globalists will find it not just more difficult to continue this escalation with Russia, but hopefully they will realize that they don't really have much chances, and hopefully they will begin de-escalating. That's what calculus might be of in the Kremlin. Although I cannot know for sure. Obviously, this is just my take on the situation. I'm not happy that Moscow have to deal with either Washington or any other capital from the West, but yet again, we are alone, right? We are alone fighting this war against this united evil force that Western ruling class is. And when you are alone, well, that has its implications, right? You cannot overestimate your capabilities, and you cannot underestimate capabilities of hostiles too. That's the situation. Unfortunately, BRICS member states and the countries that are in favor of multipolarity wasted the time. They were unable to find the courage in themselves to confront this evil that globalists are and the Western elites in general, right? They left Russia alone, and well, now we have to do what we have to do to survive. That's the situation, you know. Not just to survive, but to stand strong. By the way, you know. Nidish Kumar is commenting that Levan become pessimistic lately. Well, maybe realistic, maybe much more realistic than I was before, because yet again, you know, you can be optimistic and you can hope for you know, many things, right? But realism, objective reality, will force you to, you know, come down a little bit, right? And to base your judgment or your reading of the big picture on reality that you might don't really like, but that's what reality is, you know. So in that sense, yes, I might become a little less pessimistic. Or I was always hoping that BRICS member states would wake up and do provide some true assistance to Russia. First of all, militarily, by the way. And I don't take this argument that, well, they are continue to do business with Russia. This is help. You know what? In one hand, yes. But in other hand, this is a beneficial, this trade between Russia and China, Russia and India, Russia and Brazil, Russia and any other countries is beneficial for both sides, right? And let's be really, really, maybe even painfully honest, by the way. BRICS member states were trying to take advantage of Russia, isn't it? Due to quite a difficult situation that Russia is ended up with. And in trade, by the way, very same BRICS member states and some other countries outside of the BRICS were actually seeking for some more privileged trader agreements, right? Some tremendous discounts and some other stuff, which was not really nice, to say the least, right? To say the least. And now, if very same countries will if Russia will manage to pull out US from this conflict, from this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, in that case, if very same countries from either BRICS or others will start criticizing Russia for slowing its participation in these processes of towards the multipolarity, I would not take that criticism. Where those countries were when Russia needed their help, you know, they were trying to take advantage over Russia. That's not nice. Let's be real here, you know. So it is what it is, and Moscow will do what Moscow has to do. Like we might like it or not, but Moscow has to do whatever is necessary for the safety of Russian people and safety of the Russia. And if some compromises have to be made on this path, then those compromises have to be made. That's how reality works, by the way. If we were not left alone against this united evil force that globalists are, situation would be very different. And I believe we actually had the opportunity, humanity, to defeat this evil force. But unfortunately, yet again, BRICS member states and others, by the way, that constantly talk how important multipolarity is, they did not do shit, by the way, right? And therefore, they should blame themselves. no one else. I think BRICS is dead, by the way. The idea of multipolarity is dead. It will take some time before this understanding uh, will reach everybody, or will become obvious to everybody. But it is what it is. I think that's what is happening. Uh, Difference yet again. I mean, capital Q's and all the capital letters will make it easier. To spot the question. Ingenious BC Mumba. Oh, Eugenius BC Mumba is commenting, good morning, Levan. What is the population of the largest Russian town, nearest the American town in Alaska, where the talks will be held? Well, closest is, between Alaska and between U.S. continent and the Eurasian continent. Right there is a Diamond Island, by the way. There is a Big Diamond Island and a small Diamond Island in the Bering Strait. And small Diamond Island belongs to U.S. And the Big Diamond Island belongs to Russia. And the U.S. island is on. I think there should not be settlements there, but on Russian island, which is also basically completely, almost completely empty. There are militaries there, but I think there is some settlement there, right? So that would be closest settlement to US. That small, literally tiny settlement on that island. But if you take a look at the land itself, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsk probably will be. I don't have a map right in front of me right now, dear friends. So my guess is that Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsk would be closest big town of Russia to Alaska. I think so. Why? You think our next meeting will take place there in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsk or in Russia's Far East? Maybe. I mean, maybe it could happen. Yet again, if Friday's talks will take place and will be either partially successful or successful on a bigger scale, then our next summit between the countries might actually take place in Russia's Far East. Why not? It could be Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsk, or I don't know, on Sakhalin Island, by the way, or in Vladivostok, for example, a great city of Russia in the Far East, or anywhere else, by the way. Russia is huge, isn't it? Many places that can actually host such a summit. I'm scrolling through chat, dear friends, now, and my apologies if I miss your question unintentionally. Yet again, let me remind you that you can use a super chat feature on Rumble if you want to. Unfortunately, my channel on YouTube is not monetized there, and there is no super chat here. But on Rumble, there is. Svetlana ST34 is commenting, not Russia, but full Tsar Alexander II. I guess this is not directed to me. I guess Svetlana is engaged in talks about how Alaska become part of US and that kind of stuff. By the way, it was, I believe, Alexander II when his brother, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a brother of Alexander II who asked him on behalf of Russian army to take control over the Constantinople and all the surrounding areas, to control Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits during the last war between Russia and Turkey, during the which Russia liberated all the Balkans, by the way, and played a crucial role basically in defeating Ottoman Empire, right? And it was Alexander II that, for whatever reasons, refused to authorize Russian militaries to liberate Constantinople, which is now known as Istanbul city in Turkey. And I think that was a grave historical mistake. Russia was actually in a position to liberate Constantinople and to reach much better agreement, peace agreement with Turkey than it was reached. But yet again, for whatever reasons, because Russian elites historically are leaning towards the Western elites and stuff. I guess a British royal family had some influence on Alexander II or something. I don't know what had happened, but he refused to give such an order, by the way, and and therefore Constantinople. There is no Constantinople now on a political map. There is Istanbul. I believe it was Alexander, by the way, the second. Anyways, I'm not historian, by the way, so don't be too critical if I remembering wrongly that period of history. Robert Malcolm is commenting, Levan, we don't know what will be discussed, and I'm sure that Putin has the cards up his sleeve. Try and relax. It's out of our control. Keep up your good reporting. Thank you very much, Robert. And I agree with you absolutely. I mean, we don't, all we can is either have an informed guess or just speculate because we have no reach to classified information. So therefore, we just cannot know for sure what is going to happen. I agree with you completely on that, sir. And I'm, if you notice, I'm much more relaxed now than 2 days ago, for example, when I had quite emotional rant during the stream. It happens time to time, but yes, I'm much more chilled now, and I think Russian leadership will do whatever they can to keep Russia in safer position and in better position than it is now. Steve 192 is commenting, why do you want to give land back to Ukraine to crucify the Russians and the Christian people? Steve, it's no one wants to give back any territory to give regime. Trust me, you would struggle to find anybody here in Russia that would support this idea. But well, negotiations are negotiations, right? In the DPR, for example, Kiev regime still controls cities like Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, relatively big towns, by the way, that might be encircled literally in next few days completely encircled. But nevertheless, for this particular moment, for 12th of August, Kiev regime still controls in the DPR Pokrovsk and Mirnograd cities, right? Konstantinovka city, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk cities. This is a relatively big towns, right? Big cities. To liberate these cities, and nothing to be said about dozens and dozens of smaller settlements, right? And to liberate all this territory, obviously, many soldiers will sacrifice their life and their health, right? It's inevitable. This is high intensity conflict, and if Moscow faces reality when certain agreement has to be reached anyways, right? Then if today opportunity comes that Kiev regime will withdraw forces from DPR, let's see, from all these cities and the cities that I mentioned and all the other settlements, and in exchange Russia would have to withdraw from Sumy and the Kharkov region that are officially, by the way, not part of the Russian Federation, right? Then I think Moscow might agree on that, because yet again, based on Russian constitution, Russian regions new Russian regions are Crimea, Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, DPR and LPR. Hope of many people was that at one day referendums will take place in the Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region, Chernigov, Sumy regions, Poltava regions, in Kiev itself, and the people would decide to break away from this creation of the Bolsheviks on the name of Ukraine and to join Russian Federation. But that is a hope, right? Hope is hope, and objective reality on the ground is might be a bit different, and quite often it is exactly the case, right? So priority for Russian leadership obviously has to be liberation of Russian territory, these new Russian regions. And that's why maybe Moscow would agree on exchange of territories that are controlled by the sides. But trust me, no one literally no one would like to see withdrawal of the Russian forces either from the Sumy region or from Kharkov region, where tremendous battles were fought, by the way, by Russian forces to liberate all these territories that are under Russian control now. And Kupiansk city itself, by the way, in Kharkov region is almost completely encircled. It's definitely is an operational encirclement. So that's my answer to your question. Trust me, no one wants to see withdrawal of the Russian troops, but yet again, if we are moving towards the ending of the conflict, then I guess Russian leadership will have to deal with situations when some compromises have to be made. Yet again, we are not in their position, right? We can we are our situation is much different. It's not us that gonna make these difficult decisions. They have to, that are in charge, right? And sometimes they just have to make some very unpopular decisions. It is what it is. Question from Ramplancer 01. I heard that the FSB dismantled the two terrorist gangs in Moscow 4 days ago. They were trained via Telegram and paid by the EU. Some were immigrants, workers, and were close to Putin's house. Dear friend, Russian FSB, Federal Security Services, are neutralizing terrorist groups and assets of the Kiev regime's secret services literally on daily basis. Just before I started this stream, reports were that in Moscow region, for example, another asset of Kiev regime's secret services was detained by FSB, who was planning to assassinate a high-ranking Russian military official while using some 60 kilograms, while using basically mined car. with 60 kilograms of explosives. So you can imagine how many people could die or would die if Russian FSB was not successful in this operation, and if this asset of the Western Secret Services, this terrorist, actually succeed in that terrorist attack. So it's a literally daily work that Russian FSB is doing, and I mean, they truly have no rest. By the way, I admire their strength, man. How they are managing to work non-stop. By the way, I have no freaking idea, but they are doing tremendous job to save people here, to keep society safe, and to neutralize all the threats that are coming from all sorts of terrorist groups. By the way, so. You might hear the first time that there was a detention of the terrorists or the assets of the Kyiv regime like 2 days ago or something, but or 4 days ago. But this is happening literally on daily basis, literally, and there in many instances, by the way, not just one case or two cases, but many cases, and that's why, by the way, in my news segments, very rarely I report about this, because there is just too much information on that, and my live streams will last, I don't know, man, 2-3 hours if I pay attention to every news in this regard, right? So I'm therefore are focused on some general topics that are reported by Russian media. It's 1 hour and 42 minutes. Arcane Eclectic is commenting, Levan, it's hilarious how you think BRICS is failing or going to fail. I mean, I might be wrong, Arcane. I'm not saying that, you know what, I'm 100% correct. This is just my opinion, which could be wrong, obviously, right? Yet again, we all have different opinions, by the way. We might agree with each other or disagree, but that's what I think. Without Russia, if Moscow succeeds in pulling out US, either fully or partially, from this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, and if for that Moscow would have to slow down its involvement in these processes to create a multipolar world, or to further intensify integration inside the BRICS, then well, you tell me if either multipolar world or the BRICS can be successful, really successful, without Russia, or without full-scale Russian participation. I think it just cannot be, especially if you keep in mind that India has also quite specific situation, and some other countries too. So when I say BRICS is dead, by the way, I don't say this lightly, and I'm not absolutely not happy that I come to this conclusion. It's very disappointed that that's how reality is, it seems to me. But yet again, BRICS countries should never leave Russia alone against this evil force that Western ruling elites are. But they did, they did. Just because Russia didn't ask directly for military assistance or their guarantees that their economies will be mobilized if necessary to support Russia, it does not mean that those countries themselves should not initiate assistance, as North Korea did, by the way. So if Pyongyang can do this, why shouldn't other capitals did it? Why? I don't know, man. I just, I want to be optimistic, but unfortunately, unfortunately, situation is a bit more difficult. It seems to me. Yet again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to. I'm quite open-minded, isn't it? And I do acknowledge always that my judgment can be based on some misunderstanding of certain reports or certain developments, right? It could be, absolutely. I'm just sharing with you news that is being discussed here in Russian media, and the Russian public is paying attention to. At the same time, I'm sharing my opinion. That's all, right? I never said that I'm some sort of expert in geopolitics or anything really, right? I'm a journalist. That's it. By the way, I'm professional journalist. I was studying on the journalism faculty, right? And since 17 years, I was 17 when I started this journey into this field, right? So it's more than 30 plus years now. That's about it. And my experience in this field might give me sometimes better understanding of the situation, but sometimes, despite the experience, I might be wrong, right? Because I'm only a human being, and so therefore, I'm absolutely open to possibility that my judgment of the situation is completely mistaken. Could be, rather. We will see. And yet again, Arcane Eclectic is saying, Levan, you don't understand the difference between the trade organization and the military alliance. I do understand that, Arcane. I do understand that. In my previous updates, I did. I don't know why I had to say it, that, well, I know that BRICS is not a military alliance. But, okay, I said it nevertheless, because it's not just you, but some other people also wrote me that, well, BRICS is not a military alliance. I know this much, right? And maybe a little more than that. But it's not, I never said that BRICS is a military alliance. What I'm saying is that BRICS member states, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and others, by the way, should have a realization, who should realize long ago that this struggle that Russia is engaged is a fundamental struggle. It's an existential struggle of all of humanity against this united evil force that Western ruling class is. And therefore, if they would realize that, then in that case, they should provide Russia with whatever assistance are necessary, not through BRICS lines, by the way. I am mentioning BRICS because BRICS I see as a foundational stone of their this emerging still kind of multipolar world. But otherwise, I can never use BRICS word ever again, right? I can say just China and India and others should assist Russia. It seems like my English is so bad that I'm unable to explain what I'm talking about or what I think properly, because your question, your comment is, why you get that impression that I think BRICS is a military alliance. When I said this, man, I'm saying some very different stuff, but seems like I'm unable to explain my take well enough. For which I apologize, by the way. English is not my first language, and not second and not third, and there is a long way to go before my English will become actually good. But anyways, if I was unable to explain my take until now, then there is no point to try and explain from now on. Okay, you are now being disrespectful, right, Arcane? You're saying that Levan thinks BRICS is like NATO. Okay, that's disrespect, by the way, of my intellect, and it is unfortunate that you talk that route. But if you want it this way, okay, man, continue. You see, by the way, there are some members in our community. There are some members in our community that don't take, that are unable to take a different opinion on anything, right? And they are beginning to insult straight away, which is unfortunate. I just banned like 2 days ago Don, what was his nick, by the way? Don Zugar, because he began insulting, right, me, and why should I tolerate that kind of stuff? You don't like this program, don't watch it, man. There is plenty of alternatives, right? What the hell? Anyways, by the way, Obi-Wan is commenting, Levan, you might be right about BRICS, but Russia should not allow itself to be used by the US and the globalists to break up BRICS by turning each state against each other. I agree with you, but Moscow will have to do what Moscow will have to do based on objective reality, and objective reality is that BRICS member states left Russia alone against this evil force that Western ruling class is, right? So what should we do? We should sacrifice Russia, sacrifice everybody here in Russia for sake of China or India or any other country, and the idea of multipolarity, while those countries are doing nothing for it? No, I don't think that's how Russian leadership gonna think about or act. We've been left alone, Obi. I mean, it's just true, isn't it? We've been left alone against this evil force, and this evil force is controlling, by the way, 40 plus countries that collective West is, right? Anyways, we will see, by the way, what might, maybe this meeting on Friday will not even take place between Trump and Putin. It's also a possibility, but I know, I understand what you mean, Obi-Wan, but I also understand that Russia is, and Obi-Wan is also commenting, because that will not save Russia from their ultimate goal of Balkanization of the Russian Federation. You have a point, Obi, absolutely. But this might give Russia a break to get prepared a little better. Maybe, and if let's explore possibility of distancing US from the Europe. If there is opportunity to, do something about it, then let's do. If US is not controlled by globalists, then globalist power is significantly less than it is with the US, because US is a tremendous force, by the way. We all know that, isn't it? No matter what some even experts say about US, that US is finished and this and that. I mean, US is a still major economical and military powerhouse. That's the truth, like it or not, but it is the truth, right? And if US is not controlled by globalists, that's a good thing for everybody. That might give a better chances to Russia to survive, actually, this assault of the globalists, and that might actually give a better chances to rest of the world too. So let's experience on that possibility to pull out US from the grip of the globalists. Maybe we should even help US with that. But I do understand absolutely what you are talking about. Globalists not gonna stop, and they're not gonna change their mind and their dream of Balkanization of the Russian Federation. 100%, by the way. They will be a constant threat for Russia. That's for sure. David King is saying, do you think it's a trap? Is Putin in danger? No, I don't think so. Russian security services will make sure that if Putin will visit Alaska, then it's safe. And by the way, U.S. Secret Service will also do its best to make sure that this summit will be conducted in a safe and secure environment, because if something happens that might trigger a full-scale war between Russia and US, and I don't think adequate people either in Russia or in US want this to happen, right? We don't need no war. So I think it's going to be safe and secure if Putin will visit Alaska. Although next several days, obviously globalists and globalist assets will try or might try to derail this summit with provocations of all sorts. Okay, dear friends, it's almost 2 hours now. It's almost 2 hours. So okay, dear friends, I have to end this live stream now. It's almost 2 hours. So thank you all for a great conversation. Great conversation. My apologies, sir, if I was unable to answer your question or the comment. We have on Sundays, isn't it, big community chatter that might last much longer than it today. And so, yes, dear friends, thank you all. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye for now.